Chou Farci.
肉や野菜を細かく刻んだ詰め物をキャベツの葉で包み蒸した。
ではレギュムの魔術師と。
I feel like this was a long time coming, and thanks to Taste of Anime for hitting me up and saying, Paul, do you want to make the cabbage rolls and I will make the terrine, because I don't want to make the terrine. Let's make some cabbage rolls. I'm not wearing this for the video. It's gonna get destroyed. So the first thing we really need to do is actually work on the chicken, and we're gonna do both processes for the chicken at this. We're gonna go ahead and dice up one chicken breast, and this is gonna be for the filling that we're gonna be making later. This chicken breast is pretty big, but it comes out to about 7 ounces worth of chicken breast. Go ahead and pop that in your food processor and set that aside. Now we're gonna take one more chicken breast and butterfly this guy. This is gonna be used for the inside of the cabbage once we start rolling it, but we need to even these out. The reason is so that way they actually cook evenly when we go to steam them. If you have one piece of the chicken that's a little bit too big, it's gonna take longer to cook than the thinner parts, and you're just gonna have this weird uneven cooking process. So just get these things nice and even. I try to get these to about 1/4 inch of thickness, just so that way they cook really nicely and don't take forever either. Now for the filling. For this, we're gonna add in 2 ounces worth of heavy cream, 1 whole egg, and 1 tablespoon worth of butter. You wanna chop this up so it blends a little bit better inside that blender. Add in 2 nice pinches of salt and a bit of black pepper. You don't really want to over season this because we are going to season this again later. Now for the herbs. They mentioned herbs but didn't really show it, so we're going to be just using herbs that I think go really well with poultry. So we're going to be using thyme, rosemary, and sage. Now the easiest way to peel most of your herbs is to hold the stem at the top, place your fingers gently towards the top, and just pull down, and you're going to go ahead and release all of the leaves from the stem. For the sage, you just kind of have to peel the leaves off. It doesn't really work the same. Now that you have everything locked and loaded in your blender, let's go ahead and puree this thing. It's gonna take quite a few minutes for this to come together, but you just wanna make sure that it completely emulsifies with all those fats and everything really does blend up completely. Get this thing placed into a bowl, and we're just gonna set this in the fridge until we're ready to use it. It kind of doesn't look that great right now. Now for the star of the show, the cabbage, in particular Savoy cabbage. Savoy cabbage is slightly different than your regular Napa or your green cabbage. It's a little more tender, and it actually ends up being a little sweeter once it's cooked. To get these leaves off, start by finding the seam of each leaf and slowly curl it back. Once you have enough room to place your fingers on the inside towards the middle of the cabbage, you can just press down really hard and the leaf will free itself from the actual head. Get these things washed up and ready to go, and once they are, we're gonna go ahead and blanch these. Let's go ahead and grab some ice water to shock these after we blanch them, so that way they maintain their crispness and their greenness. This is super important when you're actually blanching vegetables. Grab yourself a giant pot with a bunch of boiling water in it, and make sure it is salted. You do want to have salt in your water, and drop in about 3 cabbage leaves. You don't want to overcrowd this because it will prevent them from cooking properly. Make sure they're submerged and bring this back up to a boil if it's cooled down like mine has. And after about 60 seconds, your cabbage leaves should be ready to go. You want to make sure that they are tender and fully cooked. Once you pull them out, immediately place them into your ice bath to stop the cooking process. If you don't, you're going to have the chance of overcooking the cabbage, and on top of that, they won't stay nice and green. This is what they should look like after they've been in the ice bath for a couple of minutes. You also don't want to leave them in the ice bath for too long because they will absorb some of that moisture. So I do like to dab these off and just make sure they're drained slightly. These are really beautiful and ready to go. Now we can move on to the second filling, which is going to be mushrooms, asparagus, and a little bit of beef fat. Now, I'm using cremini mushrooms, but feel free to use whatever mushrooms you want. I know that Shinomiya actually uses morels, but I can't really find morels. Next, we're going to go ahead and get our asparagus ready. For this, I'm going to go ahead and break the stalk just to kind of see where I can cut, and just cut all of them at once. I like to save these for vegetable stock for later. Get these cut up into about a 1-inch piece. You don't want them too big, otherwise they won't really fit really nicely inside of your chicken. Now for the mushrooms, we're just gonna go ahead and trim the stem off just a little bit and take those stems and add them to your vegetable stock pile. And then we're gonna dice these up into a small, probably 1/2-inch dice. Something similar to the size of the asparagus, just so everything has a really uniform shape to it. So our mushrooms and our asparagus are done. Now it's time to cut the foie gras. Wait, you think I could get foie gras and not morel mushrooms? Come on, guys. Really? Come on. So we're going to be making faux foie gras, but for this, we're going to soak 2 cups worth of cashews with 4 cups worth of cold water overnight. The next day, we're going to go ahead and strain out your cashews and remove all of that liquid in your strainer with no handle. Place all of those soaked cashews into your blender with 2 tablespoons worth of white miso. This is going to give it a really nice nuttiness to it. Add in 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, followed by 1 tablespoon worth of tahini. This is going to give it that nuttiness as well. We're going for that nutty flavor. Add in quite a bit of black pepper to give it a little bit of a spice, then a little bit of sesame oil, and finally, we're going to use Chef Mike to help us get 1 tablespoon worth of coconut oil nice and hot. Once it's melted, add that straight into your blender, and we're gonna puree this until it is nice and smooth. And just, Paul, really, where's the camera? There you go. This does need about 5 or 6 minutes at a very high speed to get this completely emulsified. At about halfway through the process, we're gonna add in about 2 tablespoons worth of water to help some of that fat emulsify. This was still a little bit gritty, so I scraped everything down and blended it for another 2 to 3 minutes just to make sure it was really smooth. Once you have this really smooth looking cashew butter, you're ready to go. Grab yourself some plastic wrap, and we're gonna add in all of our cashew butter onto the middle of your plastic wrap. Well, we're gonna take a little bit out. We're gonna cool that down separately later. Now take your cashew butter and just make sure it's relatively in the middle of your plastic, and we're gonna go ahead and roll this into a nice cashew butter log. You want to gently bring up the plastic wrap towards the top, then bring the top back towards the middle, and we're going to go ahead and twist off the ends just slightly to not rupture the actual seam, and gently roll this away from you to start creating some pressure on your cashew butter. This is going to help keep it nice and compact and tight. Go ahead and tie off the ends, and this bad boy is ready to cool down in the fridge. It needs to go overnight. Conversely, we're going to take a little bit of the cashew butter that we had saved and place it into a smaller pan and toss it in the freezer for about 20 minutes just until it's hard enough to cut, and this is what we're going to be using for this stir fry. Okay, that was fun. We haven't done that before. Now go ahead and take your faux gras and dice this into about the 1-inch chunk that you need, just so that they're nice and thick, so that way they don't melt immediately once they hit the pan, just kind of like foie gras. Now we have all of our ingredients ready. Let's get ready to saute this thing. First, start by adding in your beef to start rendering some of the fat. Season that with salt and pepper, just so that way you start getting as much fat out of the beef as possible. You can also try to find beef fat. I couldn't really find any, so what we're gonna do is remove the beef from the saute pan and add in 2 tablespoons worth of really nice grass-fed butter, almost to the point to where it starts browning. Once you start melting that butter, add in your mushrooms first. They'll start to absorb all of that beautiful butter, then add in your asparagus before the mushrooms have fully cooked. Give this a nice toss. Make sure it is well seasoned with salt and black pepper, because yes, this does need quite a bit of help. And from here, we're gonna add in our foie gras. You wanna make sure you actually don't cook this too long, because just like foie gras, this can melt. It is still fat. It is solid fat, it's solidified fat. You wanna make sure that this doesn't sit too long in the saute pan. Once all of that butter has been absorbed, you're ready to go. We're gonna actually cool this down so that way when we add it to our chicken, it isn't hot in the middle while the outside is cold when you start to steam it. You wanna make sure all of your components are cold. You know what? And this tastes really good. It's very much worthy of a second bite, easily. Now to actually start stuffing the cabbage. Grab yourself a couple of your nicest leaves, and we're gonna trim a little bit of the stalk off of the cabbage. The reason for this is because when you go to roll it, it actually will prevent you from getting a really nice tight roll due to the thickness of that stalk. So you wanna make sure you remove this before you actually roll that cabbage. So clear off your cutting board, grab one of your nicest cabbage leaves to start, and we're gonna go ahead and trim this off just a little bit so it's nice and even. Give that a taste, it's super sweet. Grab the chicken breast we pounded out earlier and lay that directly in the middle of your cabbage. You want to make sure that this actually has just a little bit of room on either side with cabbage showing. Season this with salt and pepper, and then add on some of your filling, the creamy filling first. This is your chicken spread filling. You only want a small amount, maybe about 1/8 of an inch worth spread throughout the top of that chicken. Then take a little bit of your sauteed vegetables, lay it directly into the middle of the chicken breast again. You don't want to overstuff this because you won't be able to roll it. Now, you're going to bring the bottom towards the top, roll the cabbage like you would a sushi roll, and tuck in the sides slightly if they are sticking out. Mine was just a little bit, but tucking them in will be okay. Get this nice and tight so that way nothing explodes when you go to actually steam this. Now to make this a bit safer, we're gonna actually wrap this in a second cabbage leaf. This is gonna prevent any leakage from happening and just give you a little bit of a barrier of protection just in case that does happen from the first cabbage layer. Make sure this is nice and tight and feels really good before you wrap it with bacon. We're gonna use 1 bacon strip, take your entire cabbage roll, place it directly in the middle of your strip, bring the bottom bottom towards the top and the top towards the bottom. You can kind of pull on the bacon a little bit to make sure the sides meet, but make sure the seam is completely underneath the cabbage. This is super important because if the bacon starts cooking and the seam isn't underneath it, it will open up. We did make a second one for the wife, so that way she has just a little bit of dinner when she gets home. Now, in your favorite steamer, this is probably not my favorite steamer, it's just all I have. I want to season the bottom with just a little bit of grease so that way nothing sticks too hard. Then take your cabbage roll and place it directly into the middle and just find out that you actually can't place the second one in there because they're so big. We're gonna steam this for 20 to 25 minutes until that chicken is fully cooked. And I mean, we have nothing else to do, so. I don't know what that was about, but we're gonna make some sauce for this Chou Farci. For this, we're gonna be using just a half of a squeeze of lemon. You don't need too much lemon juice for this because we're not actually making a ton of sauce, and they didn't really talk about a sauce in this, but I figured why not? To your half lemon, we're gonna add about 4 ounces worth of white wine or chicken stock if you're not going for alcohol. Add in about a teaspoon worth of sugar just to kind of sweeten it up and you got kind of a lemonade thing going on. And then make a slurry with 1 tablespoon worth of cornstarch and 1 tablespoon worth of water. You're only adding in enough to kind of make this into like a syrup-like consistency. Not too thick, just enough for some body. Now on your favoritist white plate, let's get ready to plate this thing up. We're gonna start off by removing your cabbage from the steamer and placing it directly in the middle of your plate. Now we're gonna take some of our syrup-like sauce and we're gonna go ahead and add this just to the rim of the plate. You don't need too much of this, or you could omit it entirely because we don't know what they did with the sauce. Now get some really coarse cracked black pepper and we're gonna sprinkle this gently over the top of this Chou Farci to give it that beautiful contrast in color and in that black pepper flavor. And there it is, your beautiful Chou Farci Shinomiya style from Food Wars. There it is, guys, Shinomiya's magical cabbage rolls. Now, the real true test is whether or not I turn into a magical cabbage Sailor Scout. Look at that. Look at those layers. Oh man. Oh, that's gorgeous. That's so nice looking. It smells rad. Like you can smell all the herbs. Oh. Wow, that's freaking delicious. You get a lot of sweetness from that cabbage, then you get the little bit of bite from all the vegetables. The interior is not as actually rich as I intentionally thought because of all the fats that we had used, but you get this really nice clean mouthfeel at the end. Oh, guys, like I could have rolled that a little bit better, but Lucian, what do you think? Does that smell good? He doesn't actually like anything but cat food. No, you don't. You don't want it. I gotta admit, I would make this again. This is definitely going to be made again. But now the ball is in your court, Taste of Anime. If you guys want to see the competing dish, go ahead and head over to Taste of Anime here on YouTube. The links are down below if you want to check their channel out. They're gonna be making Megumi's terrine, but I mean, whether or not you get my vote is yet to be seen. My name is Chef PK, bringing anime and video game food to life. Get subscribed and remember, keep playing with your food. I'm gonna down this entire thing. There's no denying that. I didn't even try it with the bacon yet. Hold on.
I'm with the phrase game. Let's take a break, been a long day. Hit your line with you fall through with the light sticks. Maybe help me spark the ideas. We got nowhere else to go. It's only up from there. I've been on my own, just running through the fields. Say vivid for the ears. I know that's how they like it. Yeah, I fantasize it. Tell me that it's real when it's all said and done. I said it how I fit it.